Okay, so for today's deep dive, let's set a scene. I want you to imagine you're at Harvard Business School. You're in a lecture hall.
Right.
You're there for a case study, and you've just heard from these. I mean, absolute giants of the corporate world.
People like Michael Eisner from Disney, Herb Kelleher from Southwest, the big guns.
Exactly. They're detailing these billion-dollar strategies, and then the next speaker gets up.
And instead of some slick PowerPoint, he pulls out this beat-up cardboard box that's literally held together with duct tape.
And he sets up an old slide projector.
It's such a jarring image. And that contrast right there, that's the clue to everything we're going to be exploring.
It really sets the stage perfectly. Our source material is all about this one organization, Manchester Bidwell, or MBC. And, this isn't a tech company. It's not a software giant.
Not at all. It's a nonprofit. It's focused on job training and the arts. But Harvard Business School, they put it under the exact same, hard-boiled scrutiny as any major corporation.
And that's the fascinating part. This tension between its mission, which is about, shaping and guiding the human spirit.
A very human mission. And then on the other hand, it's being analyzed for its, ruthless operational efficiency.
And think about who they're serving. We're talking about welfare mothers, recovering addicts, ex-convicts, high schoolers who were basically on a fast track to failure.
People the system had written off.
Completely. So the mission is, at its core, to give them a real chance at a stable future. One built on skill and, maybe most importantly, dignity.
So we're going to unpack the philosophy, the strategies, and try to figure out what made this place work when so many other programs just don't.
And to really get that, you had to start at the beginning. You have to start with the vision, which was born out of, really, a landscape of complete hopelessness.
Yeah, the speaker's childhood in Manchester. The source describes it as just this environment of constant grinding decay.
It's so specific. The trash in the streets, weeds pushing up through the cracks.
Graffiti covering everything like some colorful, insidious vine. That's a direct quote. It paints such a picture.
It does, and the human element.
Yeah.
Grown men drinking on a street corner at 8 in the morning.
It's this normalization of defeat. And that creates a kind of a mental prison.
Which the source calls the deadliest lie the ghetto uses to shrink your soul. It's this idea that your world, the world you see right in front of you, is the whole world.
And if that's true, then what's the point of dreaming? All the possibilities are already laid out, and they're not great. It's this intellectual and emotional suffocation.
And that suffocation leads to violence. The violence of circumstance.
Which brings us to the story about his friend, Ronnie.
It's a terrible story.
It's awful. Ronnie shoots a man in a tavern, kills him, all because he felt disrespected. He heard the guy was after his girlfriend.
And in that world, respect is the only currency you have. So he took care of business.
And he served less than 7 years for it. It's chilling. But what really hit the speaker was the realization that he and Ronnie weren't that different. Same background, same interests.
But their paths just split. One chose violence to prove he was a man.
And the other found a different path.
Yeah.
And that really solidified this idea that to escape, it wasn't just about getting out physically. You needed a whole psychological, a sea change.
And that change came from a mentor, Frank Rause.
Yes. And it came from working with clay, of all things.
It sounds so simple.
But it wasn't just a hobby. It was a way to build a new identity, one that was anchored in skill, in passion, in making something real, things that Manchester couldn't touch.
He gave him a foundation, a reason to struggle now.
A reason that was immediately put to the test. He gets into the University of Pittsburgh.
On probation, with, as the source says, anemic SATs, one of only 5 black students in his class.
And he was drowning at first, just overwhelmed, until he started looking at his friend's notes.
And that was the light bulb moment.
Totally. He realized, where he just saw a mess of facts, chaos.
They saw structure.
They saw context, how one idea built on the next. They understood the architecture of knowledge.
Once he figured that out.
He didn't just survive. He made the dean's list. And that wasn't just a grade. That was proof. Proof that he could compete at a high level, that the ghetto's lie was, in fact, a lie.
So that's the internal foundation. But then how do you build a physical world, an environment that actually honors that?
That is the next and maybe most radical part of the story, the Manchester Bidwell Center itself.
It's an incredible building.
It's stunning, 163,000 square feet, sleek, contemporary, designed by an architect who studied under Frank Lloyd Wright. This is not your typical community center.
Not at all. Adobe-colored blocks, huge windows letting in all this light, a floodlit fountain. The building itself makes a statement.
And that's the whole philosophy, the architecture of respect. The idea was that students coming from the worst housing projects, they deserve to be in a place like this.
It's the physical counter-argument to the decay they saw every day.
Exactly.
But, putting on my Harvard Business School hat for a second, is that responsible? I mean, spending money on rich carpets, designer tile, fresh flowers every day?
That's the question, right? And the source argues very strongly that, yes, it is. That stuff isn't a luxury. It's part of the curriculum.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It generates order and serenity and stability and optimism. You have to stabilize the mind before you can teach the hands.
It's the total rejection of the old way. And we have to remember what that old place was like.
An absolute disaster. The building itself is disrespectful. Leaky roof, leaning walls, toilets that didn't work.
And the culture was just as bad. The stories about the staff they're shocking.
You mentioned drug deals in the hall, but the story that gets me is the counselor in the parking lot.
With the hunting rifle.
Citing a hunting rifle at a student, and the speaker pulls up and is yelling, "You can't shoot the students, man!" I mean, can you imagine?
It just shows the level of contempt. The message from the building, from the staff was, your life doesn't matter.
And eventually, that disrespect catches up with them. The fire marshal shows up.
And finds, well, it's unbelievable. The sprinkler nozzles were just glued to the ceiling.
Just for show. A scam. The place was a death trap. And the judge says, you've got 45 days to move, or you lose all your federal funding.
Which would have been the end.
Should have been. They had no money for movers, so what happened?
The staff and the students. They moved the entire 40,000 square foot facility themselves.
Over one single furious weekend.
Yeah.
And they were open for business Monday morning.
That's incredible. That's more than tenacity. That's belief.
And that moment really forged the culture that exists today. It's a culture of trust, high expectations, no metal detectors, no armed guards.
They serve gourmet lunches. They hang museum-quality art on the walls.
Because they operate on a simple principle. Respect breeds respect.
So let's talk about how that environment actually translates into changing lives. Which brings us to Sharif Bey.
What a story. He comes in as a 9th grader, total withdrawn, wouldn't make eye contact, whispered. Just a vulnerable kid. He signs up for ceramics.
And ceramics gave him a voice.
It did. It gave him a medium for achievement. And that quiet, skinny kid goes on to get a full scholarship to college, then a Fulbright scholarship, an MFA, and then a PhD. He becomes an assistant professor of fine arts.
It just shows you the distance a person can travel when you give them a reason to believe in themselves.
But vision is one thing. You still have to pay the bills. And NBC was brilliant at matching skills to the market.
Right. This is where the business side really clicks. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, computers are taking off.
So they partner with IBM and create this incredibly successful Key Punch program. They weren't just training for jobs that might be there.
They were training for jobs that were open right now.
Then they did it again with Bayer, the chemical company. They started the Chem Tech program.
Which is just audacious. Taking people, many without high school diplomas, and training them in complex math and chemistry for good jobs at Bayer and Milan labs.
They guaranteed success because the supply of talent they were creating was exactly what the market was demanding.
And that confidence, that willingness to see connections everywhere led to, well, probably their most unique venture.
MCG Jazz, an actual legitimate jazz record label.
How does that even happen?
It was pure intuition. The speaker's visiting Bayer, and he sees them pressing CDs out of their Macrolon polymer.
And a light goes on.
A huge one. He thinks, wait a minute. Bayer has the plastic. Sony makes the discs. We have the music.
He sketched out the entire plan that same day.
Before he even left the building, he leveraged partnerships with Bayer, Sony, a jewel case manufacturer, Mellon Bank for the artwork. Just an incredible act of synergy.
And it became a big deal. The great Nancy Wilson recorded an album with them.
And gave all the proceeds back to the school. It just proves you can have a social mission but still operate at the highest possible level.
But to get that kind of corporate buy-in, he had to learn to navigate their world. Which leads to the story about lunch at the Duquesne Club.
Oh, this is so good. He's there at this super elite club, and he is terrified. He doesn't know the code of conduct.
He's stalling, just watching his host to see which fork to use.
Trying to decode the silverware. And then the finger bowl comes out at the end.
With the lemon slice.
And he almost drinks it. He thinks it's soup. It just perfectly captures that huge cultural gap he was trying to cross.
But he doesn't shrink from it. he strategizes.
Exactly. On the way back to his car, he sees a Brooks Brothers store. He looks at himself in his cheap suit, walks right in.
And buys the uniform. A dark blue suit, just like the men in the club were wearing.
It was a conscious choice. He was signaling to them, I'm ready to play the game at your level, on your turf.
And that move earned him their respect. And with that respect came the support, the money, everything NBC needed to grow.
It showed he understood that sometimes you have to play by the rules before you can earn the right to change them.
But that kind of fight over years and years, it takes a toll. And the vision doesn't just sustain itself.
No, it doesn't. And we see him hit this really deep personal low. Years in, he's burned out. He calls himself a miserable grant writer.
He ends up in a bar, the Shamrock Inn, drinking 4 martinis for lunch.
That was his bottom. But in that despair, he remembered the vision. He remembered the light in his mentor's classroom, and he knew he had to build a new center bathed in that light.
The lesson there is that a big vision needs more than just a flash of inspiration.
It needs dogged tenacity, and to have that, you need a source of energy that doesn't run out.
He calls it swing.
Or flow, peak experience. It's that joyful state where you're just improvising, making connections, and the work feels effortless.
We saw when he came up with the idea for the jazz label.
Right, that snap decision, or the collective flow it took to move the whole school in a weekend. He learned to tap into that as his fuel.
And that was crucial when it came time to scale the whole model, which is when Jeff Skoll, the founder of eBay, enters the picture.
And the speaker, hilariously, doesn't even recognize him at first. He calls eBay that online auction website.
But Skoll becomes this key partner, not just with money, but with advice.
Really important advice. Skoll told him not to see setbacks as defeats. They're just detours.
You learn, you adjust, you don't stop.
And that philosophy led to Bake Hat in San Francisco. They didn't try to just clone the massive Manchester building. They created a dramatically scaled-back version.
More focused. Digital imaging, film, video, high-demand skills.
Which proved you don't have to replicate the dream perfectly. You just have to replicate the philosophy perfectly.
And that philosophy is working. The empowerment, the high expectations, the market-driven training. It's being replicated in places like Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yep, the West Michigan Center for Arts and Technology. They're focused on medical coding, pharmacy techs, plus the arts. It works.
So after going through all of this, the poverty, the design, the tenacity, what's the final synthesis? What's the big takeaway for you listening to this?
I think it's that the path to transforming a life, it often starts with something tangible, something beautiful. That architecture of respect is a physical rejection of the lie that your life doesn't matter.
The environment stabilizes you so you can learn.
It's the foundation for everything else.
It makes me think of Frank Lloyd Wright again. When he designed Falling Water, the engineers all said, you can't build it over the waterfall, it'll collapse. They told him it was impossible.
But he trusted his vision over conventional wisdom. He risked complete disaster, looking like a fool.
Because true innovation, whether it's in architecture or in changing lives, requires you to believe in outrageous possibilities.
The very things that good sense tells you to avoid.
So that's the final thought we want to leave you with. The source material makes a pretty strong case that great achievement comes from defying those conventions. So what personal dream or maybe business idea are you holding back on right now?
What vision are you tamping down because conventional wisdom says it's too hard or too big or just plain impossible?
Where in your life are you letting those expectations stop you from finding your own version of swing?